Hey guys, it's Yuta. So today I'm gonna talk about how to learn Japanese with anime from the very beginning. You may think this method isn't very feasible because you've already watched a lot of anime and you only know like 10 Japanese words, such as
バカ
not a very good conversation starter, is it? But with the right approach, you can totally learn Japanese with anime. So, if you watch a lot of anime, why are you not speaking Japanese fluently already? Well, it's because you've always watched them with English subtitles. The first thing you need to do is turn off subtitles. But wait a minute, if you are a complete beginner, you won't understand almost anything except things like
あらあら
so just watching raw anime isn't very effective. But there's one thing that changes everything, and that is using Japanese captions. Fortunately, there's a lot of anime that have Japanese captions, for example, on Netflix. So turn them on right now. The next problem here is maybe you don't know how to read Japanese. So learning basic letters is going to be your first step. You should learn Hiragana and Katakana. They are phonetic letters, so relatively easy to learn. The pronunciation of each letter is almost always the same, except for a few cases. And you can already use anime at this stage. For example, let's say you learn the letter A. Then you can watch anime with captions and try to find the letter.
もうちょっと後で
Can you find A? Or you can pick a line and learn the hiragana and katakana in it. This is gonna be much more fun than just mindlessly memorizing all of the letters. And if you try hard enough, you can learn them in a couple of weeks. If you find this hard, don't worry because it takes a lot of time for Japanese kids to learn the letters. So you can learn them at least faster than Japanese kids. That's an easy part. The hard part is kanji. You probably don't want to learn to thousands of them before learning anything else. So don't worry, I'm not gonna make you do that. Instead, you can learn the basic concepts for now, especially how they are made up of smaller parts called radicals. For example, this kanji, yome, wife, consists of onna, woman, and ie, house, because kanji are totally not sexist. Just like this, complicated kanji are just combinations of smaller ones or radicals. So if you learn the radicals, you will be able to identify many kanji easily. This is gonna be useful if you look up kanji online. With yome, you can pick onna and ie, and you find it. You can also handwrite kanji to look it up. But with complicated ones, choosing radicals is probably easier. There are only about 200 radicals, so you can just look up them to be familiar with them. With this knowledge, you can find any kanji that you see in Japanese captions. And now that you know how to read Japanese, can you start watching anime now? Well, you certainly can, but I recommend doing one more thing, which is learning very basic grammar, especially how words change. Because in Japanese, we change words to express different ideas. This is called inflections. For example, miru means to see. If you say anime miru, it means do you watch anime? If somebody asks you that question, you can say miru, I watch anime. Because in Japanese, we tend to repeat the main words to answer a question. But what if you didn't watch anime or you don't want people to know that you do? Well, you can say minai, I don't watch anime. Here, we changed miru to minai to make a negative form. With this type of verb, you can actually just replace ru with nai to make a negative form. Very simple. But if you know this simple rule, you will be able to identify negative forms even if you don't necessarily know the verbs. So learning a few rules like this can be very helpful. And if you want to learn basic Japanese with me, I will teach you the kind of Japanese that real-life Japanese people today actually speak. So click the link in the description and subscribe. Now this is the exciting part, watching anime. Obviously, you want to choose an easy anime. So I don't recommend watching anime like Fate Zero, where characters use archaic, obscure words that we don't really use in conversation today.
あんなやつばらまでも宴に迎え入れるのか
One anime I always recommend for beginners is からかい上手の高木さん or Teasing Master Takagi-san. Not only is it one of the cutest anime that I never get tired of watching, they also use everyday Japanese and they speak slowly. So it's perfect for beginners. Generally speaking, slice of life or romantic anime tend to be easy. It's also a good idea to watch an anime that you've already watched because you don't have to worry about understanding the story. And knowing the story helps. And if you want to watch a new anime, you can always watch it with English subtitles first and then you watch it with Japanese captions. The important thing here is to have the right expectations. Don't expect to understand everything because beginners don't know everything. They only know what they know. In fact, expect to understand almost nothing, which is completely normal. There's actually many things you can do even if you don't understand almost anything. For example, you can try identifying words and expressions you already know. Remember what we just learned. You can change 見る to 見ない to make a negative form. This means when you hear ない, it's probably a negative form. So take a look at this.
英語の教科書持ってないぞ。ないな、すまん。悪い、今日は英語がないんだ。
Did you hear ない? You can watch it a few more times if you didn't. When you are a beginner, you can use anime for this kind of simple task. And it's going to be exciting to hear how these concepts are actually used in anime. When you learn a new concept, you can watch anime to hear how it's actually used. For example, let's learn how to make a past form. 楽しい means fun, and the past form is 楽しかった. Now try finding past forms in this clip.
あー楽しかった。喧嘩強いんだ。見直しちゃった。
Did you notice 楽しかった and 見直しちゃった? And I hope you can see past forms have た at the end. So it's actually pretty easy to recognize. So identifying different forms is something you can do. And you can also use a dictionary to look up words you don't know. Again, when you do this, don't expect to understand everything. It's completely fine to skip words when you don't understand. For example, this expression.
持ってないぞ。
持って is called 手 form, which is a very important form that we use all the time. But if you are a complete beginner, it might be a little hard to understand the concept because it doesn't exist in English. And it's okay to skip it. You can always come back later, and for the time being, you can focus on things that are easy to understand. For example, let's try this sentence.
今日は英語がないんだ。
Some words are pretty easy. 今日 means today. 英語 means English. And you already know ない, but in this case, it's actually the negative form of the verb ある to exist. Even if you only understand these words, you can kind of see that he's saying that, oh, we don't have English class today. But if you try to understand わ, が, and だ, it might be a little hard if you are a beginner. So it's okay to skip these words for now. If you are constantly exposed to these words, You will eventually be very curious about them, and you will want to learn. And then you can spend more time on these words because when you have motivation, it's much easier to learn. And that approach is much better than try to learn these concepts one by one before being exposed to them because you don't have any curiosity. So that's another way of using anime. And I can also recommend completely memorizing your favorite lines. You can start with something short, such as this line from the Monogatari series.
何でもは知らないわよ。知ってることだけ。
If you learn this, you will understand one of my Monogatari references in my videos. Again, I want to emphasize that you don't have to understand everything. You can just understand what you can understand. If you keep learning, there will be a moment when you say, "Oh, that's what it means." So keep going. Just be sure to say the lines exactly how they are said, especially the intonation. This is a good way of learning pitch accent intuitively. If you don't know, pitch accent makes these words different. Hashi, chopsticks, has a high-low pitch pattern, and hashi, bridge, has a low-high pitch pattern. A lot of people find it hard to analyze pitch patterns like this. But just repeating exactly how they are said is much easier. So when you memorize lines, be sure to also memorize the pitch patterns. It's basically just a melody. And if short lines are easy for you, you can always try longer text. For example, something like Kaori's letter from Your Lie in April. Just don't forget to watch the anime until the end first to avoid spoilers.
さっきまで一緒にいた人に手紙を書くのは変な感じです。
You can find the transcription online. And if you want to confuse Japanese people, you can even memorize something like this.
斜め77度の並びで泣く泣くいななく七半七台難なく並べて長々め
And 斜め75度の並びで泣く泣くいななく七半七台難なく並べて長々め is a good way of practicing pitch accent. Because if you get it wrong, it's gonna be very hard to figure out the meaning. So if you want something challenging but also fun, you can always try memorizing 斜め75度の並びで泣く泣くいななく七半七台難なく並べて長々め So there are many ways of using anime if you adjust your goals based on your level. And if you're thinking, oh wait a minute, anime characters don't really speak like real life Japanese people, you don't have to exclusively use anime. It's always a good idea to use many different resources. Anime is good for beginners because voice actors tend to speak clearly. But eventually, you can always watch things like reality TV shows such as Terrace House.
おはよう。
おはよ
おはよう。準備できてる？準備できてる。できてるよ。できてる。
Or you can even watch Japanese YouTubers. And until you reach that level, you can learn Japanese with me because I will teach you the kind of Japanese that real-life Japanese people today actually speak, which can be different from the kind of Japanese that textbooks and apps teach you because they can be unnatural and outdated. So click the link and subscribe to my email group, Japanese with Yuta. Alright, see you guys soon. Ciao, ciao!